I'm Matt Miller from the Google Teacher Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
We are 1 month into 2021, and I think I finally figured out what the problem is in education and education technology. It is time to get rid of the fence. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Chris Nesi. The House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. I discuss technology that is changing our classrooms and schools, and I share tools and tips that you can hear today and use tomorrow. You're going to hear the stories of teachers, leaders, and creators just like you. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way you teach and how your students learn. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the House of EdTech. My name is Chris Nesi, as you just heard. And let me first thank you for making this podcast a part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. So glad you're here. If you're a longtime listener, welcome back. If you're a brand new listener, welcome aboard. There's any number of ways that you could have discovered this podcast, and I'm so glad that you're here. You might be here for a kind of sad reason for me, and you might be here because you are a now former listener of the Google Teacher Podcast. That's right, I said former, which means if you haven't listened to episode 126 of the Google Teacher Podcast, spoilers ahead. The Google Teacher Podcast has come to an end, and I'll be very, very honest, my heart is broken because I really enjoyed not only listening to the Google Teacher Podcast, but as you know, I also produced every episode for Matt Miller and Casey Bell. As their podcast editor and their podcast coach, I got to see and hear them do amazing things over the course of 126 episodes. And there is now a huge void in the education podcast space without their combined voices. Now, yes, Matt Miller has his podcast, and he's going to be hopefully doing some things with that. And you have Casey Bell and her Shake Up Learning show. But here on my show, I can say I'm going to miss the work that they did together. And I told them that very same thing as well. I do a lot more than just Google. So this is an all-encompassing education technology program. If this is your first time listening, you will be impressed and you will kind of stick around and become a part of the House of EdTech community. My sincerest thanks go out to Matt and Casey for thinking highly enough of me to be a part of that journey with them. And they told me many times, publicly and privately, that when they were looking to start their podcast, I was the only person that they thought to contact and reach out to do the quality of work technically on their show. And, me being who I am a pusher, and I am a coach of coaches, let's say, or I influence the influencers, and to support them and teach them and guide them on their podcasting was an honor. And, I'm glad that they are my friends and I can reach out to them when I need anything, and they know that they can reach out to me anytime as well. Could it rise up again? Well, never say never, because I think in podcasts kind of be like comic book characters. Until you see the body, anybody can come back. And even then, anybody can come back. Congratulations to Matt and Casey on a wonderful run of 126 episodes, of which, again, I got to edit and produce all 126, and it was my absolute honor. Now, I'll also say that because that show is ending, I now have time. So if you or someone you know is looking for a podcast editor, I am available. So if you're interested, you can email me feedback@chrisnessy.com, and we can talk about what I can do for your podcast. And again, I've got the time to do that now. I have been virtually attending some big time conferences, and I've been doing a lot of live streaming for these events. You might recall, or maybe this is news to you, but back in December 2020, I did 5 live stream shows for ISTE 2020 during ISTE Live back in December, where each night of ISTE, I got on at 10 p.m. Eastern, and for about an hour, I did a live stream call-in show on YouTube. And it was great fun to have some amazing conversations and reflect and kind of bring that conference to life in a different way, other than the great job that they did. And as I'm recording this on January 30th, I spent a couple of nights in the last week doing some stuff for FETC 2021, the Future Educators Education Technology Conference in Florida, typically. And obviously this year it was virtual. And the featured content in this episode stems around a conversation I had with AJ Pachaski, formerly of New Jersey, now in Florida. And he came on one of the 2 nights I was live, and we had a great conversation that I'm going to be sharing with you as the featured content in this episode. And as I'm recording this again, the first week of February and all of February is TCEA, which is another popular EdTech conference. And they're going to be doing theirs spread out through the entire month, but I will be live streaming February 1st, 3rd, and 5th from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. at chrisnessy.com/live, where again, you can call in. So if you're attending TCEA during that time and, you want to talk about what you're learning, or if you're presenting even later in the month and you want to come on and kind of preview and talk about your presentation and your topic, I welcome those conversations. So please, if it's you or someone just share, have someone get in touch with me, and I would love to talk to some amazing people for TCEA 2021. Now, some links, and again, everything is sort of tied together today. So links where you can see this stuff. So if you want to see what I did at ISTE, you can go to chrisnessy.com/ISTE20. That's ISTE, the number 20, and that's all lowercase letters. If you want to see the live streams I did for FETC, you can go to chrisnessy.com/FETC21, the number 21. And my TCEA playlist is chrisnessy.com/TCEA2021. And those links take you to the YouTube playlists for those live streams. And anytime I'm doing something live, just go to chrisnessy.com/live. And I always promote those things on Twitter. So make sure you're following at Mr. Nessy and at House of Ed Tech. I am doing another new podcast. No, I'm not talking about the Chase for 28 Yankee podcast that I do with my podcast compadre from Podcast PD, AJ Bianco, which you can find at chasefor28.com. I am doing a new podcast with my older son, Miles. You may recall that my older son has a passion for vacuums, and a couple of years ago, he did the Vacuum Podcast. Well, he, in his wise old age of 8 and soon to be 9 years old, he retired that podcast, and we have decided that we are starting a podcast about jokes. So my son and I are launching a podcast called Knock Knock, Who's There? And you can find that at knockknockpod.com. And our teaser trailer is up. This is very kid-friendly in terms of jokes, knock-knock jokes, riddles, funny things like that, and other funny stuff as it's titled. But we are going to launch that on March 1st. The teaser is there, but the first episodes will drop on March 1st, 2021. And we are going to come at you 3 days a week. So there's going to be a new episode every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it's going to be me and my son telling jokes. So it's a podcast you can listen to for you if you want to have a good laugh. If you want to share it with your own children, if you want to share it with your students, send them over to knockknockpod.com. And if you want to share a joke for the podcast, you could send that to feedback@knockknockpod.com. And Miles and I are very excited to be doing this together and creating some content. And we've created a bunch of episodes already that are just waiting to make you laugh. So hopefully you'll check that out. And just a few minutes ago, I mentioned something about, the website. And chrisnessy.com is brand new. So if you've been there before, or if you've never been there, it is brand new. And I have made some changes technically. Now, I don't want to bore you too much. And when I say bore you, I'm talking to AJ Bianco because he thinks when I start to go down this road that I'm going to bore you who is listening. But hopefully I'm not going to bore you because you have an interest in technology. So for many years now, chrisnessy.com has been a self-hosted WordPress site. I paid for website hosting on domain.com and had my own instance of WordPress running on chrisnessy.com. So very simple. One of the negatives I've always felt about WordPress is you've got to keep it updated. You got to make sure the software itself is updated, the latest version of WordPress itself, and then all the little plugins and add-ons that give your website even more functionality, you have to make sure that those are also up to date, or else you risk your website, even a teeny tiny website like chrisnessy.com, could be hacked by somebody and brought down. And that happened a few times early on as I was, learning the ropes of having a self-hosted website. And I just kind of got to a point where, one, hosting is expensive, and two, it takes time to keep that updated, and there are better things I could do with my time. My solution was I found another way to host my website that's more podcast friendly, because I'm not a huge blogger. I think if you go to chrisnessy.com, you could count on two hands how many actual written text blog posts I have. I'm not a big writer, hence the microphone and the podcast. So I didn't need something that I could do blogging with, although my new website does have a blog and it has all the older blog posts in case I want to write a blog post. But this new website is more podcast friendly, and I'm using podpage.com. So if you have a podcast or you ever start a podcast, this is where you want to build your website, because wherever you're hosting your website, in my case, I'm using libsyn.com. That's libsyn.com to host the MP3 files of my podcast. Podpage connects to my RSS feed. That's like the radio signal that you're subscribed to that you never see, but that's the technical part of it. And Podpage looks very pretty, and my domain is mapped. So I'd love it if, either on your phone or at the top of where you're listening to this, or go on your computer, go to chrisnessy.com, and you will see that it is brand new. It's very podcast friendly. It looks great on your mobile device. It's got great subscription buttons. So if you ever need to recommend the podcast to somebody, just send them to chrisnessy.com on their phone and they'll be able to subscribe. All the show notes are there. The website looks amazing and it works the same as it did before. So all of the links, in theory, again, I just kind of flipped the switch on this before I recorded this episode, but in theory, everything should work. So if you could help me out, if you go to the website and you do a search or something, or a link doesn't work, please reach out to me, feedback@chrisnessy.com, or let me know on Twitter that something doesn't work or something that should be there isn't there. I could certainly use your help because, more eyes are better than just mine. But everything still works, so you can still do chrisnessy.com/the episode number as the shortcut. So for example, you can go to chrisnessy.com/172 to get to the show notes for this episode, and all the previous episodes obviously still work, and all the show notes are there. I did a lot of copying and pasting, but that's a story for another day. But definitely go check out the all new chrisnessy.com. This might sound a lot like I'm doing One Word 2021, but please do not mistake what I'm about to do for one word, because I don't mean it to be one word. This stems from a conversation I had with my podcast and education and life friend, AJ Bianco, and we were talking, and the word determined came up in our conversation, and really, he came up with it. Now, by definition, according to some dictionary website, the word determined means having made a firm decision and being resolved not to change it. Now, I think a synonym for that could be stubborn. I think another synonym for that could be Italian. And I can say that because I'm Italian. Talk with my hands the whole time. So again, if you're a longtime listener, know that I'm moving my hands as I'm doing this. All right. Just not always eating pasta while I record the show. That would just be messy here at the computer. But anyway, determined. Being resolved not to change a decision. Now, I think I am going to make a concerted effort to be overly determined. Now, I've always been determined. I set my mind to something. I want to go do it. I want to get it done. I want to get results. The one word that I hold on to, if I'm going to have a one word, and, Stacy and AJ will be laughing at me, or if you know my love-hate relationship with the whole one-word concept from Podcast PD, me being a pusher. I want to push and encourage and help and support people. I may have helped you already. If I haven't, know that I'm willing to push and I'm willing to help you do what you want to do. But I think I'm also determined. And the other thing that comes to mind is a lot of people have told me lately that I am very honest, to the point, and direct. And I think that's a good thing. Now, in the past, that's kind of got me in trouble, and I'm sure it'll get me into trouble again in the future. But I think I'm going to ride the wave of determination and being really transparent, really honest, really forward, not in a nasty way, but why not? Why beat around the bush? If you're looking for feedback, I'm going to give you feedback. I'm going to be honest with you. And in terms of being determined, I want to help as many people as I can this year in 2021. Whether that's my students, you, there are things that people want to do, and I am just a pain in the neck you need if you're looking for some accountability. So that's kind of where I'm coming from here in the early stages of 2021. I'm in some Voxer groups. I'm in some Facebook groups. I'm hanging out on Clubhouse now, which I'll talk about later in the episode. And I think I'm at a point where I don't have time to waste. Now, I'm not saying anything's wrong and I'm going anywhere, to the other side anytime soon. But, why waste time? All right, let's make it all count. So I come back to being a pusher, being determined, and being very intentional. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about, and I just wanted to share it with you. If you got some thoughts on that, shoot me an email. Talk to me on Twitter. I'm all about having conversations, and I'd love to chat with you. That's my EdTech Thought. Now it's time for this episode's House of EdTech recommendation, and this comes to us from one of my awesome listeners. This is Mr. Mike Brilla, and Mike and I have been collaborating as I've been determined, and I've been working with Mike on the side to start a brand new podcast, which there'll be more information about coming in the very near future. Mike Brilla and he invited me to this awesome website called Miro.com, Miro.com. And I'm going to let Mike Brilla talk to you about Miro.
Hey, what's up, Chris, and the rest of the House of EdTech community? My name is Mike Brilla, and I am currently a teacher on special assignment for Google integration in a school district called Owen J. Roberts. I'm in the middle school. We're about 40 miles west of Philadelphia. And I wanted to share a tool. I missed the EdTech Smackdown, and I totally put it off 2020 craziness. But I wanted to be sure to share a tool with you that I've been using quite a bit lately that I absolutely fell in love with, and it's called Miro, M-I-R-O, Miro. I explored it a little bit ago, maybe a year or so ago, and for some reason I went away from it. And a math teacher in my building, a 7th grade math teacher named Mike Uhas, came to me and was talking about how he uses it in his department to plan, and he added me to it and told me, you got to get on it. So at Mike's prodding, I checked it back out again, and I'm absolutely, I'll say it, I'm obsessed with Miro right now. Whether it's for planning my own personal projects, like a podcast that I'd like to do, or working with math teachers in our buildings where they collaborate and plan their own ideas, or creating mind maps Miro is the place to go. It's kind of like Google Jamboard on steroids, but it's more than that. So you can create a whole host of different types of templates and plans that you can go with a white blank space like a Google Jamboard, or you can start with some templates like a mind map if you're used to using. I used to use bubble.us quite a bit, storyboards, different visual types of tables, prioritization methods, meeting reflections, dot voting, a whole host of different things you can do through Miro. You can collaborate in real time with people. You can mark your boards to be private. You can mark your boards to be public within your domain. You can mark your boards to be by invitation only. So the possibilities are almost limitless in what you can do with Miro and using it to share your ideas and your brainstorms. What I love about it is you can not only have a visually appealing brainstorm, but then you can add things like files. You can add Google Docs. You can add links. You can add a whole array of different types of media to your brainstorm board, so you don't have to go all over the place. Everything is right there in one place. There is a fee, but for educators, it's free. And you have to literally answer a few questions to prove you're an educator. It takes about a day or two for you to get through, to get approved, and then it's off to the races. So do yourselves a favor and check out Miro, Miro.com.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mike, for sending that in. I really appreciate it. And Miro has been pretty cool to collaborate in. And if you want to check out Miro, go to Miro.com and check out Miro. And if you're not connected with Mike, he is Mr._Brilla on Twitter. That is Mr_BRILLA. Thanks a lot, Mike, for sending that in. And that's the EdTech recommendation. As I said earlier at the top of the episode, during FETC 2021, I did 2 nights of live stream shows. The second night was super productive. The first night, I'll be honest, I had fun, I did it, but it was an okay live stream, and I really wasn't all that excited about it. And to be honest, that stems from I was not all that impressed with FETC 2021. For many years, I had seen from afar and had FOMO about FETC, FETC. All the big EdTech people are going to, Florida or Orlando or wherever, they host this thing for the last, number of years. The F used to stand for Florida. Now it stands for future. And I always was like, I would love to go to this conference and present or, somehow be involved. So this year, they said that they would be doing it for free. It would be virtual. And, I could have registered for free, but I registered even as a member of the media. So, through this podcast, getting access to it. And I was not that impressed. It was not what it was. Now, it was very different. In order to make it free, they had to have everybody and their brother EdTech company sponsor it. And every session was a sponsored session. Now, the people at FETC, telling you there's all these great sessions. And there was a lot of positive that I saw on social media about FETC this year with the virtual stuff. But I saw almost just as much, if not more, people being like, what is this? Why is it like this? A lot of people asked, is every session sponsored? Every session seems like it's a sales pitch. And I'm sure a lot of sessions felt that way. And my thought is, if that's the type of session you're running, you're probably at the wrong conference, not as the attendee, but the way you run it as a presenter. Because most education conferences are attended by the people who don't make the decisions, right? You and me, we go to these conferences as teachers, or, we don't have a lot of authority to spend the money, buy the equipment, buy into all this stuff. And it sounds like that's a lot of what people got from this. A lot of sales pitches. I heard, there was some tech live stream or something. I went to this thing and I looked at the sessions and I searched for what I'm interested in. So I searched, video creation, podcasting, and got nothing until I got a message that said, oh, there's this, live stream going on and, somebody is talking about podcasting, or they're mentioning podcasting right now. And I went and I looked and I saw who, the person was who would be talking podcasting in this, group of 4 or 5 people on this live panel. And I looked up this person, and they don't even have a podcast. So if you don't podcast, you shouldn't be talking about podcasting. You should really try to speak to things that you do or that you're current on doing, because this person had a podcast that was from like 2005, 2006. And I don't mean to sound negative, but I don't have time for that. I did more podcast episodes in the last year than the person who's talking about podcasting has done in their whole life. And I've used podcasts and I've taught podcasting. In fact, I submitted a session to do podcasts and podcasting at FETC. That wasn't accepted, which was another thing that aggravated me as I talked to more people. A lot of people like me, their sessions were rejected in favor of the companies and their sessions, which fine. If that's what you have to do to make the event free, that's what you have to do. No skin off my back. Just my impression. I did not have a great experience. And I would personally think twice about, do I want to be involved in either covering it as the podcaster, or if I was given the choice to actually go, I might think twice about that. But anyway, that's me, I guess, venting a little bit. So there you go. I put that out there. The second night I did this, I got to talk with Alex Podchaski. He's formerly from New Jersey. He's an education technology director, and now he's in Florida, working for a school in a district, doing that very thing. And he came on to the live stream, and we had a great conversation that no more than a few minutes in did I know I'm putting that in this very next episode, which you're listening to right now. In this conversation, we talk about a number of things that relate to equity in technology, equity in education, and going forward, post-pandemic, as you're listening, and I'm recording this in early 2021. But one of the questions that came up that we talked about was, how do we get rid of the fence? Let me set that up for you real quick, and you'll hear this in the conversation. So I might be wasting time talking about it now, and you're going to hear about it later, but I'll do it anyway. So we were talking about equity versus equal, so equality versus equity. And we brought up to mind that image that we've all probably seen on the internet where you have the people trying to watch something, but there's a fence in the way. And there's 3 different height size people. And equal is giving each of these 3 people the same box to stand on. Now, the tall person who can already see over the fence, they can really see over the fence. And, somebody who couldn't see over the fence can now see over the fence, and somebody who couldn't see through the knothole in the fence is now tall enough to see through the knothole. That's making it just equal. Equity, and I've seen this in my own district, and when we talk about equal versus equitable, equity is giving people the number of boxes they would need. So the tallest person doesn't need a box, so don't give them a box. They can already see over the fence. The shortest person might need 2 boxes to see over the fence, not just through the knothole. And that third person might just need 1 box to see over the fence. So people get what they need. That's equitable. What came up in the conversation, though, was instead of trying to give people the boxes, why don't we try to solve the problem of the fence that obstructs our view? So in this conversation, we talk about that. And I can say, as I am about to play this conversation, that we don't come up with the answer, but I think this is the very beginning of something I'm going to be probably pretty excited to at least really explore. And that is, how do we get rid of the fence? So without further ado, here's my conversation from covering FETC 2021 with Alex Podchaski. Alex in Florida, you're on the air. What's up, man?
Hey, I wasn't going to let you sit there all alone again.
I appreciate that. It's like when a student decides to engage with a teacher.
Yes, or turn on their camera.
So what's going on? How you doing?
Oh, I was just going to jump in because we did a whole EdTech chat on that whole equity thing a week, not this past, not Monday, but a week ago. And a lot of the discussion came back down around really putting the relationship back into the teaching model. While it'd be great to be able to push all the technology to everywhere, not everybody's going to get it, and there's always going to be times where it still fails. But when you base the learning process on that relationship, and you're teaching the skills and not the content, you end up creating much more of the equity than you would if you outfitted everybody with, high-speed internet and 3 devices to 1 kid, and the count of the technology or the access of the technology isn't what gives the equity. It's the ability to use it and the ability to have that relationship to understand the interactions. That really is what the driving, when we were doing it, that was our driving, sort of our driving principle as we got through the chat.
So more focusing on the skill, making sure students acquire skills.
Right. It's the oft debated, the fence is in the way. Do you give everybody a crate? Do you give different people different numbers of crates, or do you remove the fence? Like the giving everybody a device is adding crates and everything else. Removing the fence is giving them that relationship and giving them that the skill sets, so that they know what they're looking at. They know where they're going. They know what the access is. It doesn't matter that at that point, then it doesn't matter how many devices they have or which device they have or which software you're using. You've created the environment where they understand what's going on, and every student then gets to sort of participate and be in the learning process at the same way, which is really the goal.
Alex, that's very, very profound, because for those who maybe you haven't picked up on the imagery, but when we talk about equal, Alex is talking about that picture we've all probably seen with, the 3 different sized people of different heights trying to look over the fence to see something. And, equal is giving them all 1 box, and still you're going to have inequity. Making it equitable is giving them what they need to do it. But what you just said, I had never considered, and that was get rid of the fence. So how do we get rid of the fence?
It's like, to me, we have the COVID presents the perfect opportunity. We've got everyone waiving test scores. We've got everyone waiving requirements. We've got, we no longer are talking about time in seat for classrooms, because you can't do it. All the models that we have are broken, and they're broken for safety reasons. It's good. Like, we're breaking them for a good reason, but we don't have to put them back. We don't have to put them back exactly the same way. It's like saying, it's like we have a retention lake on our campus. And they've been doing some remediation work and changing the how it's sloped, how steep the banks are. And literally overnight, from last night to this morning, they removed all the fences because they're almost done with the project. And like that's why I was thinking of that in the imagery, because all of a sudden something that was blocking my view of across the campus was now instantaneously removed. And I forgot how much was blocked and how much my perspective had changed because the fence was there. So I wrote this down. I wrote down, how do we get rid of the fence? And I think this might be the new flag I need to carry and, wave into battle as an educator. To you and everybody in the chat. So it's one thing. So maybe I jumped the gun here with how do we remove the fence, but in this metaphor, what is the fence? What is obstructing us when it comes to, now, are we just talking about education technology and getting access to the skills, or are we bringing in other things to make education better? How big do we need to go? How big do we want to go with this? I think it goes as big as we're willing to challenge. I mean, in some cases, you start small, where it is just getting access to some better tools or other things. But I think people and take a look at it from the level of access that you have in your district. So if you're a teacher, the best thing you could do, or the most power you have to change that access and to change that and remove that fence, is to make sure that in your planning, in your preparation, in your pedagogy, as you are working to teach the students, don't focus on, yes, we have to focus on content. There's still, the tests are going to come back, unfortunately, unless, again, we move this up the chain. Teach them, teach students. If you teach all your students, not this, and it sounds really controlling, but how to think, the process of, my background is engineering and physics. If you teach the scientific process, if you teach the design process, if you teach design thinking, you can step through any problem or any question that you have. And you've given now students a set of tools that they can apply to every situation that they have. You're not asking, there's still, again, you're a high school teacher, we're dealing with a little bit more of the advanced concepts. There still has to be the memorization of the alphabet, the memorization of some math facts, the memorization of certain things. But there's a crossover point somewhere in middle school where we need to teach them the how to think, the how to solve problems, the how to approach things, how to verify information. It's all I want to call it the ancillary things that we give them as part of digital citizenship, or as a lesson inside of our science classes. And it's those means of analysis that the teacher can start with. And then as you move up the chain, if you're a building administrator, you can get your teachers to all be using pedagogies that engage the students and meet the students where they are. And if you're at the district level, the superintendent gets to engage with the rest of the community. And then they get to start arguing for how we're going to make those arguments. And then you go all the way up through, I'll go through union reps, through state departments of education. We need to question the 180 days of school. We need to question the 900 hours of instruction, because that's how the states are measuring things. And that's how we do our funding. We can't just continue to say, this is what we have. It's broken now. We have an opportunity. We almost have an obligation now to sit down and say, is there a better or different way to do this? And we're going to be in this realistically. We're in this for a minimum of another 6 months. If not, if things go, variants happen and everything else, we could be doing this again for another year. If we're doing this again for another year, we really have to throw out seat time out the window, because we don't have an opportunity. We're not going to get our kids in school for 180 days. Like, it's just not going to happen. They're not going to physically be there. So what do? We're not going to be able to continuously throw out the testing results, because we're going to have to measure things. So what other means can we use to measure? What other valid, research-driven, result-based things can we do? People have done portfolios. You can go for the mastery concepts. You could do a whole lot of different things that nobody tries, because everything is tied to seat time and test scores. Those are almost gone now. We have an opportunity. We need to take advantage of it. I'll get off the soapbox now.
that Alex, I applaud everything you said, but the problem though is, if we're, and I'm sure I've said this to you in the handful of times we've been in the same place at the same time, but I will say till the day I'm retired, because I don't want to be dead, so I'll just say retired. Yeah. When we measure seat time, we are measuring the wrong end of the learner.
Yep.
That goes for students. That goes for teachers, where, we have our required PD and, are the hours that we have to attend, and, our contractual time and things like that. When we use the clock to measure, the clock should only be used to measure time and speed and, in athletics. All right. But you're right. We are at a crossroads. Everything that's happened in the last 18 months, let's say, has shined a light not just in this country, but all over the world, all the issues and problems that these aren't new problems in education. But like you're saying, we have the opportunity to change things. And the other thing that and I don't like to use the word hate a lot, but the other aspect of education I hate is the idea or the notion that that's the way we've always done it. Sorry, that's BS. And when that's one of the reasons, you're wrong. And I don't care what you're talking about. If you're going to default to that's the way we've always done it, there can be no other way. You know, our blinders are just so comfortable where we can't see left or right. That's a problem because it's a huge contradiction. It's adults talking out both sides of their mouth because you've got teachers who maybe subscribe to what we're saying that we should change, that are trying to tell their kids and their students to be creative and think differently and, you know, put yourself outside the box, when the people who make the decisions, all they're trying to do is fortify the box that they are stuck in.
Yeah. One of the things that, I mean, I want our lives to be able to be open and free. But the phrase that worries me the most about all the things that are going on now is I want things to go back to normal. Well,
I hate normal. I hate normal.
Yeah.
Doug drops here in the chat. Best thing that he's heard about this is from Mitch Resnick at the MIT Media Lab. And he says, we measure and assess what's easiest to measure, not what we value. Yeah, I guess that's why we standardize testing is in math and reading. That's the two low-hanging fruits of subjects we can test, right? And it's the easiest thing to give multiple choice because A, B, C, D, or E, one of them is going to be the right answer to the math question, right? Yep. We can design multiple choice questions around language arts. Okay. And I guess occasionally you can infuse other subjects, but I mean, let me just say this. Thank God there's no standardized social studies test that kids have to, you know, take and pass. I joke that, you know, maybe at some point all students should have to take and pass the citizenship test, not to get their citizenship, but to take the test as part of their civic learning, you know, just to kind of bring that into schools. And I have done that before. I've given, you know, samples of that to US 1 students who are learning about government and the foundations of our country. And just to kind of give it to them and say, this is what a lot of people, you know, are willing to die for, to come here and, you know, take this test and, you know, get that citizenship. And that kind of makes it real for some kids to realize that it's out there. And I guess Doug is also saying that there is standardized social studies testing in Florida. So sorry to hear that. And my pal Fancy Lancy checking in. Yes, we learn, we grow, we adapt. I will certainly say, and I'll keep that up there for a second, I think we're all trying to do that, you know, but Alex, you and I both know there are people out there who are not about growing and adapting and learning. They want to go back to the way it was. It was comfortable. Okay. But I'm sorry. That's the wrong nostalgia. Good nostalgia is thinking that the 1950s were wonderful. Sure. Were there issues? Yeah. But that's the good kind of nostalgia. I do not long for the nostalgia of, you know, education in I can only speak for my own experience of the late 90s and the, you know, 2000s as I went through college and, you know, got into education. Right. I wish I was a student now. Right. I think I would thrive so much better as a student now with the different tools and just the I mean, when I was in high school, nobody cared what I thought for real or was concerned with, was I getting value? It was, you know, take the test, get the grades. Where did you behave? Right. It was very much the factory model.
I wanted to be a rocket scientist so bad, but things like Space Camp was a movie. Like it was real, but it wasn't real. You had to travel all the way across country to actually try and attend if you were lucky. There weren't robotics competitions. I'm old enough to remember there was no internet. It was dial up everything. It was CompuServe and AOL. The access, the stuff that I have sitting within 5 feet of me right now that my kids get to play with and get to learn with is beyond things that I had in college. Like I went to engineering school. I worked in engineering labs. I remember the first 3D printer that we got that was resin powder based. That was a $15,000 machine. Now I have I have kids that live in our residential dorms on our campus who have them in their rooms. Like that, we're talking, 25 years later, it's almost commoditized to the point where they can design things in their room that took me entire lab spaces with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of computer equipment to start with. It's just phenomenal. But again, but it's not about just that access. Like it's about giving them that inspiration and keeping the barriers out of their way.
And I think, again, I am on board with, we need to eliminate the barriers, the speed bumps, the fences, whatever imagery we want to create. But I think where we can kind of pull back is some of the demands we put on students and how so much of their life and their time is so micromanaged. I mean, where I'm currently at, I've been since 2012. And the next formal piece of homework that I give will be the first piece of formal homework that I give, right? So I'm not inundating my students with, here's what we're doing in class, and here's more stuff you can do at home related to this. I designed it all to be done in class so I can at least give them a chance to do and pursue anything else on their own time, right? So I'm very much in the, I don't have time for homework camp, but it's so kids can actually have some time. I know that students today don't get the same time. I mean, I'm trying to teach my own children. I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And the other day I bundled them up. I threw them out the back door, almost literally. And I said, don't come back in until I call you for dinner. I don't care what you do in the backyard. Don't hit each other. Don't fight with each other. Just stay outside. And they're like, we want to watch the iPad. I'm like, no, get the hell out of the house.
Yeah, I have some of the same problems. But all my kids know how to operate iPads and their Amazon Alexa in the house, and they can turn things on and turn things off, and it becomes, entertaining. But and again, giving them a little bit of, having them have that opportunity to learn how all this works. But it does become a little bit too comfortable sometimes. Now,
in the chat, you put this comment: outwit, outplay, outlast. What did you mean by that?
That was in Fancy Lancy was doing we learn, grow, and adapt. And in some cases, but both teachers and students, it's about playing a game, and they're playing a game to see what they can do. It's like Survivor. It's just cutthroat. Tell kids that they have an opportunity to win something. And they are going to some of them are going to act worse than they do on Survivor to make sure that they win. Like we've got to that's what you were mentioning from the, giving the kids time and opportunity. We've got to give them the ability to not view everything as I have to win and you have to lose situation.
Can you expand on that?
Sure. Let me see if I can come up with an interesting example. So, one of the things I've seen at some of the schools I've been at have been students who, basically they have certain subjects that they like, but those classes are not an honors class or they won't get advanced credit for it. So they won't take the classes because they can take a different class that is graded higher. It'll be just as hard or just as easy for them, potentially even easier. They want the GPA boost because the GPA boost will put them in a better position for college, and it'll get them to be able to be more competitive than their classmates, even though they have friends who want to be in those classes with them, and be, they both want to be computer scientists when they graduate, but some won't take the classes because it doesn't line up properly with a proper AP or, high honors GPA style. So they'll do everything they can to keep the GPA, but not take the classes that they're really interested in, so that they get into the better college and have the better experience, quote unquote, experience in high school, or join every club under the sun and try and be in as many officers and everything else. It's the quantity instead of quality argument. I want the best of the best of the best, sir.
And what that makes me think of is, I also do some work. I adjunct at the university level. So I work in the School of Communication at Rutgers University. And I often ask students at the beginning of any course, what problems do you want to solve? If I want to water that question down, the question is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right. Mm-hmm. And I will ask young people that, who are in their late teens, early to mid 20s. And I get some adult learners as well. And so often what they want to do or the problem they want to solve in the world has nothing to do with what their major is. And depending on the student, I will push back and I will say, that's really noble and what you want to change. And I don't get the answers like, oh, I want to solve hunger and, have world peace. Like, they come up with some like legit problems that they would love to solve. And I will push back and I say, well, then why is your major this? Why did you not choose a path that would let you do that? And when I do ask that question, they don't have an answer. Sometimes the answer is, and this might be the worst answer of all, this is what my parents want me to do. My parents are paying for my education and they're, they told me what to study. To which I say, well, one day you'll be off your parents' payroll, but
yeah, no, I used to teach for skills too. I did a project management class for them a while back. And it was the same thing. So what do you want to, why do you want to be a project manager? What do you want to run? What do you want to change? What do you want to build? What do you want to do? I want the promotion. Well, what is that promotion going to give you? More money. Okay. How are you going, is this going to help you? And, the part of the class was, had to manage like multiple projects. And I always tried to push them to, okay, so your first project can be work related. Your second project has to be something that you want to do, that you're really interested in, that you want to change. How do you project manage, working with a nonprofit or doing volunteer work, or how do you give me a project that this gets, that gets you passionate about it as opposed to something you have to do for work.
Yeah. This is, there's a lot of systemic problems that we need to fix in society. Certainly, again, to go back to where I started tonight, we start to fix things in education, we'll start to see changes in society. And education, is broken. Is technology the answer for everything? No. Is technology something we need to fix? Yes. Again, to not to reset, but to sort of rewind and recap a little bit. But, the obstacles that are in the way of our teachers and our students, are there obstacles that prevent me from doing the things I'd like to do? Absolutely. Are there obstacles that then prevent students from doing what I'd like them to do, or the opportunities that not every student has? Yes. It's like when you ask kids, how do we have world peace? And if you ask a bunch of kids how to fix the world, they're going to come up with some really good answers. The problem is kids don't have a way or that voice to really make that happen while they're kids, right? Kids don't think that kids should be bullied. All right. Kids don't think that people should be hungry. And yet in the world, we have all of these problems that exist.
You just reminded me the whole you ask a bunch of kids the world peace. I was visiting a school and they had there's actually a thing called the World Peace Game, and it's meant for fourth graders and middle schoolers. And it is literally about setting up, and there's a guy who comes out and does basically the class on how to teach the teachers and then the kids. And it's literally a week-long type project where you all take on a different country. And you literally have a game board that is the size of a room. And you have to get to world peace. And you have to solve your world's problems. And if I remember correctly, every group of kids gets there. It's just how fast they get there and what they do to get there. And they all get there by compromising. And it's a great challenge to give kids. I'll put the link in the chat.
Please do, definitely.
Because I just looked it up again, I'm just making sure it's the same same thing.
While you're digging that up, Fancy put in the chat. I'll pull that up here. Most of our students take the classes taught by the teachers they respect the most. Teachers they respect most focus on positive relationships. This often outweighs AP and important classes. I had this very conversation with my in-class support teacher today. We're getting ready to wrap up a marking period in a semester, and we're giving kids time here at the end to make up missing assignments and go back and revise work that maybe we wouldn't normally be able to have that time for, but we want them to do well. And a whole bunch of them in our Google Meet chat were like, you guys are the best teachers, thank you so much. Like, they were super appreciative. And after the fact, we were talking, we're like, for a lot of these kids, they're not going to remember the history. They're going to remember the relationship and how we made them feel. And that stemmed into a conversation with my wife today where, what are kids getting out of our education? And yes, relationships matter. Absolutely. Building rapport with your kids, showing empathy, showing grace, showing compassion. And none of those things involve you being their friend, but being a mentor, being somebody they can count on. All right. That's what's going to be valuable for the kids. Why do you think, again, if I'll put the history teacher hat on, if we go back 100 years, you were set for life if you had like a 6th through 8th grade education. Okay. We have high school because we put child labor laws in place. And where are we going to put all these kids that aren't working in factories? Right. We're going to give them more education. So build those relationships. All right. Build a rapport because think of your own experiences, right? Alex or anybody in the chat. We remember the people. I remember some specific lessons or some projects, but it's mostly I remember the people, and it works both ways, good and bad. I remember my really great teachers that I had great relationships with. And I also remember the ones who were not great people and great human beings, and as someone who is an educator now, I draw on what do I want to emulate and what do I never want to be? And to bring it back to technology, this has nothing to do with technology. This is just interacting with people. And Alex, you brought it up a little bit earlier, and I've talked in the past about the human element in education. More often than not, I harp on the fact that there's this divide between teachers and admin where you become an administrator and you kind of forget how to be a decent human being. Some people, there are a lot of good administrators out there. Don't get me wrong, but it's all about relationships. Teachers to administrators, teachers to students. Hey, newsflash, we're all people, right?
Yep.
We're all people.
But it comes down to like Fancy mentioned before, it's about the culture that you set. If you don't set the right culture for that to happen, it changes things. Yeah, culture trumps all. When I was doing my administrative certification, my big takeaway from the courses and all the money I paid, culture trumps everything. And I'm sorry to use one of those words. Culture matters. All right. That's what you need to put all your effort and your energy, all the eggs in the basket of culture. You create good culture, everything else will be much easier. Yep. There you go. Want to thank Sharo for checking in on the chat. Glad you are here. Your avatar is looking as good as ever. Thanks for popping in. Alex, I want to thank you for popping on. This is a fun conversation. I appreciate it because there's a reason I'm not on the radio by myself. Believe me, I understand how hard it is. It's the same thing for Twitter chats. And it's the same thing for podcasts and everything. You sometimes just need that other voice to help keep things moving and make it interesting, and be able to take a breath every so often. Yes, especially there's a reason I don't record the House of EdTech live. All right, so there's planning and preparation that goes into that, but I do love the joy of live. So it is a ton of fun. Well, then we should encourage people to join to figure out, get invites to Clubhouse, since I think we're both going to be spending a lot more time over there.
Yes, sir. So I had 6 invites that I used on people. If I get more, if you know somebody, so Alex, you're on it, so I'm not talking to you right now, but if you're in the chat and you haven't heard of Clubhouse, start asking around, try to get yourself invited in there, because I think it's going to be a game changer. And there is a future episode of the House of EdTech that I'm working on where I'm going to lay it all out and what my grandmaster plan is on how it's going to change education. And maybe not specifically Clubhouse, but the ideas and skills we can get from something like Clubhouse. Because, I've done episodes on TikTok, and, TikTok could be gone tomorrow. But what are the skills that an app like that can give us that are going to enhance our practice and our personal development and our growth? Yeah, these things are fun, but we can also learn. And it's like time. Time flies when you're having fun. Time will also fly when you're learning. So definitely be on the lookout for that. But try to get yourselves onto Clubhouse. And when you're there, look for me. I am at Mr. Nessie. And Alex, what is your Clubhouse username?
It's all AJ Pachowski.
All right, I'm going to squeeze in a just give it a try segment. Not that somebody else submitted, but I've got something to share that I think, again, you should just give it a try. And it stems from a headline I recently saw, and that is Quizlet is joining forces with TikTok. This is interesting. It was just over a year ago, back on January 25th, 2020, that I released episode 149 of this podcast, and it was titled TikTok for Educators. And I interviewed 2 English teachers, one middle school, one high school, and at the time, a high school senior who was very passionate about history and was crushing it on TikTok. If you haven't listened to that episode, go to chrisnessie.com/149 for the show notes, or scroll back in your podcatcher and listen to episode 149, TikTok for Educators. Now, I am a TikTok star by no stretch of the imagination. I learn a lot, I create a little bit, and I consider myself still learning, but I'm in the water. I think there's going to be a new way to get involved with TikTok, and that stems from this story and this news that Quizlet is joining forces with TikTok. So this was a recent announcement as of January 27th, 2020, and I'm going to quote from an article on Adweek written by David Cohen. And this article starts by saying, quote, "Global learning platform Quizlet is now integrated with TikTok, enabling select creators in the education space, such as subject matter experts and teachers, to link Quizlet study sets directly to their TikTok videos. Quizlet is known for its artificial intelligence-powered study tools, and the company said it has 50 million active users. There are more than 450 million Quizlet study sets to choose from in topics such as art, history, language, science, and creators have access to the integration so they can also create their own study sets." This article goes on to detail this, but I want to highlight 2 quotes. First, from the head of product of TikTok, Sean Kim, said in a statement, quote, "The integration with Quizlet is an important step in our commitment to assist creators in the production of learning content, provide resources for learners, and introduce emerging teachers to the TikTok platform. 2020 forced everyone to find new ways to educate and learn, and we believe bringing together the Quizlet and TikTok platforms can help build human connection, promote creative learning content, and inspire enriching ideas." End quote. And I'll leave you with this quote from the director of growth at Quizlet, Phil Carter, and he added, quote, "At Quizlet, we're focused on building effective study tools, and as a part of our innovation process, we're always keeping in mind great ways to give learners study experiences that excite and inspire them to keep learning. This integration between TikTok and Quizlet is a unique opportunity to bring together the fastest growing mobile entertainment platform and the largest AI-powered learning platform to reach students where they are and where they're seeking compelling content, particularly in a remote environment." So just over a year later, I'm going to encourage you again to just give TikTok a try. Whether you're creating content, consuming content, it's definitely worth looking at. My username on there is @CJNessie. Connect with me. We can chat. If you're not sure what to do, just be a consumer of content. Okay? It'll get to know you. You can find things to learn. There are lots of great teachers to follow who are leveraging this platform, and they're not just teaching their own students. The content is out there, and they're connecting with people all over the world. Now, I'm not saying you're going to get TikTok famous, but it might be a new way for you to make a difference in what you do. So that's what I think you should just give a try. Now, this segment normally, as we're kind of resetting for the year, if you have something that you have tried and you want to share it here on the show, send me an email, feedback@chrisnessie.com, or you can go to chrisnessie.com/flipgrid, and there is a just give it a try Flipgrid where you can share your story of something you tried, whether it worked or didn't work. And this is the spot in the show where I shine the spotlight on you. So just give it a try. Go try TikTok, because Quizlet is now a part of the game, and I think that's a game changer. Our VIP of this episode is Miss Lancy Collins. Lancy is a technology coach in the Homer, New York School District, and Lancy wants to share her experiences, her thoughts, and her reflections on all the amazing things that educators and students do. She does that in her school district. She does that on Twitter. She comes to the live streams for House of EdTech, and she's also hung out with Podcast PD, and she's got her own blog and website, and she's an awesome person. You need to connect with Lancy Collins. She is on Twitter. Her username is FancyLancy, FancyLancy, and you can check out her website at tinyurl.com/intechgration. That's INTECHGRATION, and the tech in integration is capitalized. There'll be a link to her social and her website out at the show notes for this episode at chrisnessie.com/172. But to you, Lancy, thanks for coming to my live streams. Thanks for being an engaged member of the community and a listener of the podcast. And you are a House of EdTech VIP. That's going to do it for episode 172 of the podcast. Thank you for checking out this episode. Thank you again to Alex Podchaski and Mike Brilla for being big parts of this episode. Make sure you connect with both of them. They're valuable members to any PLN. Let's keep the conversation going. I would love to connect with you and hear your thoughts on the information and resources shared in this episode and any episode that you've listened to. For the show notes and the links to everything I talked about, go to chrisnessie.com/172. Another way you could continue the conversation, you can become a member of the pretty brand new House of EdTech Discord community. If you're new to Discord, it's really easy to use. Just go out to chrisnessie.com/discord. You can use the app on your phone, you can use the app on your computer, and that's what I have chosen to replace the House of EdTech Facebook group. So if you were a part of that, come over to Discord. We've got some great conversations that are birthing over there. You can also text with me. I would love to have a textual relationship with you. Okay? You can text at HoETPOD, that's House of EdTech Pod, HoETPOD, to 81010, and my community texting is powered by Remind. Would love to have you over there. Now, if you enjoy the podcast, first thing you need to do, you got value from this? Go tell somebody else about the show. Share it on social media. Use the hashtag House of EdTech. Share it everywhere. You could also become an awesome supporter. The Awesome Supporter program is powered by Patreon, and that allows a consumer of content like you to support a creator like me. Special thanks to Anthony Arnaud, Dan Gallagher, Carlos Garza, Peggy George, Jeff Herb, Mike Messner, Matt Miller, JP Prezavento, Lori Simpson, and Kyle Wilcox. Thank you to each and every one of you for your support. And if you're interested to become an awesome supporter, you can go out to chrisnessy.com/awesome. The next episode of the podcast is going to be episode 173. It's going to come your way on February 14th, 2021. And I'm going to be talking about Clubhouse for education. That's right. There's this app called Clubhouse that maybe you've heard of. We're going to be talking about it in episode 173. Until next time, thank you for learning with me. And remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.